Welcome back to the NBA City Circuit Series. This game is the Spurs up against my squad. Spurs, obviously, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, but Derek Anderson. We'll get to them in a minute. With my team, I've gone with Alonzo Morning, T-Mac, and Vince Carter. Now, I figured that T-Mac would be able to guard Tim Duncan by himself. As well as have some obvious advantages with the ball handling and the ability to finish at the rim. It was an intentional mismatch, put it this way, and it worked on both ends because Tim Duncan is a much more powerful player. Obviously, he's a post player; he has been his entire career, whereas T-Mac's a wing player. But I wanted to have that variation in there. I didn't want to just sort of match up position by position or playing style by playing style. And I decided to run with Vince Carter because I wanted a swingman to really go after Derek Anderson. Now, Derek Anderson at this point was the best year of his entire career, and he looked unstoppable. There's a huge reason why the Spurs were the top seed in the NBA. That season in 2001, although they did get swept in the conference finals by the Lakers, but don't discount the fact that Derek Anderson was injured, and although he came back to play Game 4, I'm not sure if he played Game 3 as well, but he was injured the first two games. They had to start Antonio Daniels, who played his heart out in that series, but he just couldn't stop Kobe, and Kobe killed them. But Derek Anderson was the second best player, and that includes David Robinson, obviously. He goes dunking on Sean Bradley, hitting threes, playing good defense, and really took care of that team in the backcourt, because Avery Johnson was declining at that point, and they started Terry Porter in a lot of games. I still don't quite understand why they traded for Steve Smith in that offseason. Derek Anderson for Steve Smith, because Derek Anderson was an absolute beast. In my opinion, that season he was a top 20 player, and I'm not exaggerating. And that's why I wanted to look. I know Vince Carter isn't a defensive powerhouse in this, but I knew we could give it back to him at times. But Derek Anderson, right on cue, shakes Vince Carter and hits a three. I'm not sure if a healthy Derek Anderson would have made a big difference in the outcome of that series against the Lakers. Let me be clear about that, because in all fairness, the Lakers were on an absolute rampage. Now, do I think they would have got swept if Derek Anderson was healthy? No, I don't think they would have got swept. I think the series would probably ended 6. And I'm not talking about him just playing, because when he came back, I mean, you guys remember, right, the injury. If you haven't seen the injury, look up on YouTube, Juwan Howard, Derek Anderson. It is as dirty of a foul as you could ever see. You had Derek Anderson driving baseline. Juwan Howard doesn't even make a play on the ball. Pretty much just coat hangers him. Anderson comes down, lands on his shoulder, pops it out. He doesn't play the rest of that series against the Mavs. And he doesn't play the first 2 games of the series against the Lakers either, which they dropped both games at home, as I previously mentioned. So, yeah, check that out and you'll see what I'm talking about. Also, look up some of his highlights, because he had an incredible season. I can't talk about that enough. Speaking, I haven't even talked about the game so far. And the Spurs have a game breaker up, and they're up by 2, so things are not good. So I'm dribbling around, trying to lure David Robinson to come guard me. He won't. Vince shoots a 3, and he buries. Now, that's not necessarily a terrible outcome. What would be great is if I could lure them into taking it in for a dunk, which I'm able to do. So really, the game breaker is only worth 2, and that 3 on the other end, that still negates it. So I'm still only down 2, and I've got my game breaker. So that worked out not too bad. It could have been a lot worse. I could have missed that 3, and they could have hit a 3 on their end with their game breaker. That's how, and then all of a sudden I'm facing, a 6-point deficit, which is, achievable, but I'd prefer not to. There's Alonzo with a nice tip dunk. I'm really enjoying using Alonzo. I'm pleasantly surprised with this, how good they made him. And what I'm thinking is, at the start of the game, they're saying when the rosters were actually finalized by, I think this is before Alonzo came back. So I think they're basing it off what he did the season before. And if that's the case, then it's a completely fair rating of him, because he was a very, very good player the year before. You know, if Shaq wasn't so dominant, if Shaq wasn't around, I think Alonzo should have been the MVP that year. But obviously Shaq was, so I'm not going to play that hypothetical. But what my point is, Alonzo was a top 5 player in the league, and I think that they've done a good job of representing that Alonzo. Now, if they did the ratings after the season, you know, where Alonzo came back with the kidney ailment and they got swept, Miami Heat that is, they got swept by the Charlotte Hornets, then it would be a different case. Getting back to the game, you see I'm up 12-10 at this point. Tim Duncan really hasn't hurt me. It's really Derek Anderson. And for offensive rebounds, the offensive rebounds are absolutely destroying me in this game. There's a 3 attempt, which I will happily live with, from Timmy Duncan. And Vince coming the other way. I was guarded by both bigs on this play, and now some possessions just you can't get a flow going, and that was one of them. You know, I'm trying to get to the bucket, trying to get something. That was a big block, by the way. I'm trying to get something, but it's not a lack of turbo. Like, sometimes it is, but it's not always. But there's plenty of opportunities where I'm crossing over, they just back up, and there's nothing you can really do. You put up a shot, and they end up just blocking it, even though they're backing up. It's cool, but it's kind of hard because there's nothing you can do to counter it, and it's kind of a cheap way to do things. There's Derek Anderson, the play reminiscent of what I was talking about before. He's driving almost baseline on that play, and gets taken out. So maybe that would have been, if there was injuries in that, maybe they would have done that injury. Oh well, I remember going up for that shot. I was thinking, oh god. That would have been a nice feature, because if you've ever played pickup, I've never been in a situation with a shot clock and pickup, but if you've ever played pickup, sometimes you get hung up in the air a bit. They should have been like, maybe if you press like two different turbos, you can shoot it over the backboard if need be, and at least you'll have a chance at the offensive board. That was an absolute massive dunk on Timmy Duncan by Vince Carter. And back the other way, Derek Anderson, he's doing all the damage, but Alonzo makes such a big difference. I can actually defend both the Twin Towers with just Alonzo in there and 2 swingmen, which makes all the difference in the world. Because I remember earlier on in the game, not this game in particular, but that was a sweet block by Vince Carter, by the way. I remember earlier on just feeling completely helpless going up against certain teams, where I was having to go bucket by bucket. Now, Alonzo isn't the best offensive option, but what he does defensively makes up for all of it, and I'll be happy to keep him throughout the duration of the City Circuit Challenge. I can't see myself trading him in for anybody, with the exception of maybe Kevin Garnett. And obviously I won't be getting rid of him. I'm still not sure about how that whole system. I'm only picking up the players I want to pick up. But I'm sure there's going to come some point where I'm going to have to drop certain players. You can't have like a roster of 30 players to choose from. If I do have to, when I say I can't see myself dropping him, I mean replacing him in the lineup, like consistently replace. He's my go-to big man. I won't be using him every game because that'll get a bit stale, a little bit boring. But I will definitely be looking to keep him if I'm going up against Shaq, or if I'm going up against Rasheed Wallace or Kevin Garnett or Chris Webber. Alonzo's going to be my guy to go ahead and slow them down, hopefully. Even up against other teams, I had him up against in the boss battle for Bonafide, and boy, that was a nice dunk and a busted rim too. It was a pity that nearly was a game breaker. But yeah, up against in that boss battle against Bonafide, you know, there was a big guy in there. I didn't know he was that big, but I was very happy to keep Alonzo there. So I've talked far too long here. Next video will be up shortly, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.
These guys showed up to play today, that's for sure.